welcome to Hetalia Confessions, where I talk about all things Hetalia. So today I'll be talking about the latest chapters from Hetalia World Stars, and specifically about Italian American food. And so a brief summary of these new chapters, and before I start, I will give out a spoiler warning if you're not interested in knowing about the new comics or any World Stars comics before the anime is finished. But you're welcome to leave the video. Otherwise, please continue to watch. So the basic summary of these two new chapters is that America is on trial for poorly made Italian food, and Italy is as the witness. America is the defendant, I think that's what it's called. France is the defense attorney, England is the prosecutor, and Germany is the judge. And Italy, as the witness to this crime, he complains about American food. So he says that he is a country of pizza and pasta and things like that, and he wants to testify about America. And America complimented the pizza and pasta from Italy's house, and so Italy decided to see what America's pizza and pasta are like. So he wanted to see it for himself. He went over to America's house, and he arrived there with great excitement, and he witnessed the unspeakable. And he was very surprised to see the sight of pizza and pasta mutated beyond recognition. He sees pineapples, runny sauces, cheese on cheese on cheese, crappy processed cheese, violently high in calories and sodium, along with hamburger as a pizza topping. I just think it's interesting how he's not as mad about the pineapple as he is about the hamburger as a pizza topping. And it's very sad to see France struggling as a defense attorney. It's very clear that he sympathizes with Italy. And of course, America kind of low-key threatens France to do his job. And America is saying, well, it tastes good. At least somebody thinks it tastes good, and that's fine. And France and Italy disagree. England, of course, is definitely enjoying that France is struggling as a defense attorney, as well as enjoying any chance to criticize America. So he is just saying that, of course, the defense attorney is in a rushed state. He's going to have a hard time defending the defendant, and it's very clear that the crime has been committed. Of course, Germany is also, as a judge, is kind of being steered towards the prosecution side. So that's the first chapter that was released this year in 2021. And when I first read it, I was a little pleasantly surprised because this isn't the first time the World Stars comic had covered the topic of food. So the time that I remembered, it might not actually be the only time, but what I remembered was the entire arc from chapters 265 to 272. And it's not just about American food. This is just about foods in general and the authenticity of foods. And France actually brings this up to a world meeting, and he says that the other countries' versions of your own cuisine is just too strange. And so he puts up this complaint, and Germany says, please do not bring this up. It's going to be a dangerous topic. But it feels like, because no one can really say anything about the topic because everyone is kind of guilty of this. So it's definitely a difference, because I feel like the latest chapters are kind of more of an AU with the court system and trial. Because technically in real life, you wouldn't be tried for a food crime. At least not in the sense of making too much cheese or something. Maybe if you committed an actual crime, you could be put in court, but not for something that America did. So as you see in canon, the real perspective of these characters, of course, France, as usual, is very particular about his cuisine and preserving his cuisine, while Germany is kind of more objective about it. He's saying we're all guilty of doing this. We can't really bring this up without causing more issues and drama, because we're going to find dirt on everyone when it comes to this topic. And France, of course, is saying, well, I get it. I make phony stuff. I make dainty, stylish German cuisine, but fake French food is just sad. And Germany, of course, doesn't like that. He doesn't like how France is basically insulting his food. And of course, Spain talks about how he's been surprised by Spanish cuisine. That's actually this mysterious, oversized paella. I think there's another country that talks about mysterious Asian cuisine. It's hard because you don't know if they're authentic versions of other houses' cuisines or not. And it's really hard to decipher, is this the country's take on a foreign food, or is it like the legit foreign food recipe? And some of them are very awful. Of course, America is saying, well, everyone's so concerned about little things, and it's just not really important. You can just put bacon in everything. And as for Iceland, no one really knows his house's cuisine. I mean, at the top of my head, I can't really think of anything. The only things I can think of are probably just generic Nordic foods. I can't really think of anything. So yeah, we move on to the next chapter and the next part where America and Canada apparently have a cooking channel. Well, mostly America. And he talks about making French fries. And they make French fries just normally. And I think some of you know that French fries aren't actually French. I think this chapter covers it, so I won't spoil it. But he talked about adding crushed biscuits, roasted marshmallows, and a fancy little drizzle of chocolate sauce. And you're like, oh, look, it looks fancy. And of course, France is very offended by this because this is not a French food. And of course, there's Belgium in the last panel saying, well, this is actually my cuisine. French fries are invented in Belgium. And of course, the real story about it is that the person who created it, the Belgian chef who created it, actually said to call it French fries because it would sell better. So I think French food definitely has a reputation for being high class, as always. And the next chapter was with Australia and New Zealand. And that's why I said it's not just about America in this arc compared to the arc that is currently going on. It's about Australia and New Zealand. They make Italian food. They made their own little cooking channel. It's New Zealand's cooking channel. And he made a simple Italian dish, but it involves canned pasta with fruit and cheese on top of pizza dough. So we don't even know what this is. It's like pasta as a topping for pizza, and that pasta is canned, and there's fruits added on it. It's like really confusing. What is this? And I think I would actually like the taste of it. I would definitely love to try it if I ever go to New Zealand. But Italy, of course, does not take this well. He kind of goes insane, and Germany's worried about him. And so, of course, Italy joins France's party, I suppose, in the World Council, and doesn't want to have foods like this anymore. Of course, England, and this is in the next chapter, England is in the chapter, and Australia and New Zealand talk to England about New Zealand's cooking channel, and of course, New Zealand doesn't want England to know about it. But of course, England turns out to not be there because he's a cutout and doesn't like talking about cuisine at all, which is interesting because in the latest chapter, he's a prosecutor, very open to talking about cuisine. And of course, we have very famous chef personalities that are from the UK. And I think there's some stuff in London that have really good foods, but I feel like most of them would be fusion food. So if you go to a restaurant that says it's Indian food, I feel like the taste will taste really good. And I think that's what England's good at doing. But I don't think they have their own like native cuisine that's up to par with, let's say, France. Anyway, see, it's tough when they get your house's cuisine wrong, and it spreads like that. So France, Italy, and Italy, of course, is joining France's side, and Germany's like, please don't push this topic anymore. And France is like, arranging sauces and ingredients stylishly on the plate doesn't make it French cuisine. Of course, America and Canada were like, oh, really? We didn't know that. We thought that was the French style. So, of course, obviously, France is not going to win this debate. China kind of makes a good point saying, I've seen weird Chinese cuisine made, and I make weird foreign cuisines too. It's like that for everyone, so we should all just do as we please. And it's kind of interesting for China to say it. It's a very like laissez-faire way of looking at things, and I think it's kind of inevitable anyway because that's how foods are. And even France too, he wants cultural exchange of cuisine, and so he can't really argue against China, even though nothing's going to stay the same and authentic French cuisine isn't going to be preserved internationally. Well, too bad. It's it's the way of the beast, the nature of the beast. So there's not really much France can do. Of course, America promises that he's going to do research before he cooks anything. And of course, we'll see in the final chapter of the arc, he and Canada make another video for America's cooking channel. And this time he's going to do some proper research. And of course, Japan's interested because, they're going to make Japanese food, sushi. So I think some people might find it offensive. I thought it was cute how Canada was in a ninja costume, and I don't know exactly what America's wearing, but definitely looks like an anime protagonist costume. And it looks cute. And they're making sushi, and so far so good. They're using rice that's from Japan, and a rice cooker that's from Japan, and they have actually a fish that was caught probably in Canadian waters, but otherwise it's so good. Sushi ingredients are easily spoiled, so they quickly make the sushi roll. They don't crush the rice. They don't want to use too much force, and it's a very nice sushi roll that they make. And of course, Japan's very pleased, and he's like, "Oh, look, he's using the lesson he learned at the meeting right away." But America deep fries the sushi on high heat and made the sushi roll a crispy tempura. And they made a tempura sushi, and they're very excited about it. And Japan, on the other hand, is very not happy with the final product. And the thing is, tempura does have a place in Japanese cuisine. They usually do it with fish, shellfish, vegetables. Usually the fish is shrimp, though I've seen some other authentic Japanese places that do other tempuras, but usually it's shrimp. They definitely don't deep fry an entire roll to make a tempura sushi roll. So I think Japan's reaction was definitely called for because he was very confused with what was going on. So that's the idea with American cuisine. And I think what was interesting in the penultimate chapter of the arc when America says, "I'm going to use research from now on," and France says, "Oh, you're just cooking based on intuition the entire time." And of course, it's nothing wrong with cooking with intuition, but we all know where the intuition comes from. And just a throwback to an earlier season, the first season actually, episode 25, and Britain gives young America a plate of fish and chips, and America compliments the fish and chips, and both of them, if I remember correctly, were labeled with the sign of "has no sense of taste," arrow pointing at Britain, arrow pointing at America. Neither of them have a sense of taste. We all know America got that poor sense of taste from Britain. And America even calls the height of culinary art hot spuds. And I think part of it, too, is Britain's fault because he kind of told America that French food isn't as good as British food. And that's America's basically doesn't know any better, so it just goes with that. Of course, Canada seems to know a little bit better. And he also says the same thing, that America inherited a poor sense of taste from England. And in the context of this chapter, which is chapter 197 of the World Stars, is actually in the middle of the Canada's Revolutionary War plus Canada's independence arc. And right now, in the current context, America is fighting for independence, and he wants to check on England and how England's doing because England's been feeling really sick lately. Of course, England keeps giving Canada marmalade, fresh marmalade, and Canada's appreciating that and gets interrupted by America. And they get into an argument, and America actually says to Canada that of all the things that they're talking about in this argument, is that even obliging England and eating nothing but marmalade, even though you actually like maple syrup more, right? And Canada says, "Well, that's true, but it's pretty good too, really. Yeah, and it's handmade, and he went through all the trouble to make it." And America says, "Your will is like a fluffy feather." Of course, Canada just explodes in response to this, and he just says this: "Well, let me tell you something too. I think you're definitely the one who's completely adopted England's palate. I mean, the two of you would eat things that are shocking to me. You've always been such a glutton and a scatterbrain and an overly aggressive big cat. Even Mr. Kumabunji's more of a gentleman than you." And then he slammed the door and just ran away because America is just too scary. So obviously Canada too also thinks that America and England have similar core taste. And I guess Canada thinks that he has a slightly better taste, maybe because he was in France for a little bit. Though I will say, based on the America's Cooking Channel and Canada being there, I don't think he knows that much better about French foods or other foods in general. So America has been consistently called someone with a poor sense of taste, someone with a very poor palate, someone who doesn't respect authentic foods from the home country. And so we'll finally go to before we move to the latest chapter and see how that court case was resolved, we're going to go to the chapter arc about the invention of carbonara. So Japan arrives in Italy and he wants carbonara. And carbonara is actually a classic pasta dish in Italy, but I think most of us will probably think of American carbonara, where there's a lot of extra, more Americanized ingredients, such as bacon. And this is the context of how that carbonara was made. During World War II, America asked Italy's to make him a pasta dish, authentic Italian dish, and they don't really have ingredients because the war is happening, they're on an ingredient shortage. And so he offers them his fridge, and the fridge has a lot of bacon in it. And when we go to the next chapter, chapter 121, the fridge also has lard, butter, and eggs, as well as some pasta. And they're struggling to make a fatty food, especially Italy, because he doesn't have any experience cooking for America. And of course, Ramona says, we gotta make something though, because if America's hungry, he's gonna be hangry, and it's not gonna be good. So Ramona thinks back to when he was immigrant in America and thought about how he used to cook for America during that time, and I think that's a reference to the 19th to 20th century Italians that arrived in America and kind of established Italian-American food using the ingredients that were available to them here. So, of course, America likes crispy bacon, he likes cheese, he likes lots of portions, huge portion sizes, and of course, Romano obliges to that with those memories and makes the Americanized version of carbonara in the comic. And of course, America likes it, and of course, he makes the mistake of comparing it to England's cooking, and Romano gets really mad. But of course, the actual fact sheet about carbonara follows the comic, and carbonara was actually made by American soldiers in Rome, and they used whatever ingredients they had to create a pasta dish. And it wasn't really the Italians that made it, it was the American soldiers that did. But it was still fun seeing Italy and Romano make it in the comic. And it's basically, if you want an American style, you want cream, cheese, a lot of bacon, and that's American style, while in Italian style, in Rome, you would use not cream, but butter or olive oil. And I think olive oil is probably the better bet to emulsify the egg. Of course, emulsifying eggs with the oil is definitely tricky to do, and sometimes it would end up looking like scrambled eggs stuck to pasta or be really sticky. And so it's definitely a very tricky technique to actually master in Italy to make an authentic Italian carbonara. Of course, there is another traditional dish in Napoli where they make a sauce by emulsifying egg and oil and then add vegetables and beans to it. And that dish might be inspiration for carbonara, but we don't really know. So that's an interesting food history tidbit. So we'll go back to the Italian-American food trial, and we're going to go to chapter 370. Britain criticizes America's use of cheese, and says that he does this with other countries' cuisine. Of course, Japan says that he sold something with warm rice soaked in tempura oil and smeared with high viscosity sauce as sushi. And I think he might be talking about California rolls. And China says the sticky, sweet, fatty mystery Chinese food that Meiko likes doesn't exist in my house. It's bizarre food. And Britain says, in short, no one wants to eat American-style food. Therefore, he's guilty as charged. And France is like, well, he tries to do an objection against England, but it's not really working very well. And he tries to say, well, Americans just made something based on Italy's foods, and it doesn't have to be authentic Italian. Well, of course, England just said, well, just cheese and sauce, and he's just eating cheese and sauce, and it's not really Italian food. And of course, France is still struggling, and so America produces a deep dish pizza. I think it's a deep dish pizza just based on what it looks like. Apparently put an oven in the courtroom, which I think is hilarious. And that's the evidence that he presents. I don't know why he's presenting the evidence as the attorney, but I guess he just fired France right now. And Germany, France, Italy, and England decided to taste the evidence. And America's nervous. It feels like a episode of like MasterChef or something. And America's like, oh, how is it? What do you think? Of course, France hates it. He's like, this cheese is like, apologize to the cheese. It's really bad. Well, Germany's like, well, it's not that bad. He says, I can't say I hate it. America says that he put more cheese and there's a ton of meat and it's delicious. And France keeps telling him to apologize. I think Italy just died. Like his soul is leaving his body. As for England, though, of course, he says that it's yum. So France says that it's delicious to England, so that means that America should be not guilty. And it got a not guilty verdict. So yeah, England, of course, since he has a poor taste in food, is asking for some American-style pasta. So I feel like that's an interesting comic about Italian-American food. And I do want to say, though, that Italian-American food was mostly made by Italian-American immigrants who came here and with undergoing discrimination and situation of poverty and just overall pretty difficult life just adjusting to America. I know they all came here for a better life, and I think some of them did achieve that. And I think a lot of them, those people that did achieve that, are the ones who invented these Italian-American dishes. And some of these, I'll name some Italian-American dishes. Not all of them necessarily were made by Italian-American immigrants of that time period, but I will name some Italian-American dishes nonetheless. So spaghetti and meatballs, marinara sauce, garlic bread, baked ziti, chicken parmigiana, fettuccine alfredo, Italian dressing, penne alla vodka, Sunday sauce or gravy, cioppino, muffuletta, sausage, peppers, and onions, Neapolitan ice cream, pizza pockets, shrimp scampi, pepperoni pizza, Italian wedding soup, Italian subs, and mozzarella sticks. So I think some of these foods I would take a pass on, like I would just not eat them. Some of them I love still, even if it's not authentic Italian or whatever you want to call it. But these foods, they might not be authentic Italian, but a lot of them are authentic Italian American, like made by these immigrants that came here, forged this whole new cuisine culture, and basically put themselves in the American staples, which I think is great. I think one of them, of course, is spaghetti and meatballs, and well, of course, I think it was popular before the Lady and the Tramp movie, but it definitely made themselves part of the American cuisine with that movie. And there's other things like marinara sauce. I don't know if I can eat it anymore because sometimes it upsets my stomach a little bit, but that's definitely a good American taste. I always love garlic bread, and the thing about garlic bread too is that it is actually a thing in Italy to have bread that's been toasted and then rubbed with oil and seasonings, but it's usually done by slice, and it's called bruschetta, and so that's different from garlic bread where it's a whole loaf of bread and it's split, like not completely sliced, but like split a little bit, and then they baked with garlic. That's not really typical in Italy. So yeah, some of these too are just switches. Like chicken parmigiana is not really in Italy, but eggplant parmigiana is. It's just a chicken and veal was invented by immigrants in the United States and Canada because meat was actually much more affordable here. So I think if chicken and veal were more affordable in Italy, they probably would have made a parmigiana too in Italy. But I feel like that's one good thing that happened here. And then of course there's fettuccine alfredo. That was actually invented at a restaurant in Rome, but it's more popular in America because Americans like cream and cheese. So I think it's very funny to make fun of American foods, in my opinion. I definitely feel like though there's a point where you don't want to be too dismissive of what the immigrants have done when they arrived here and made these cuisines. And I feel like it's one thing to talk about the fast foods that's in America. Like it's just different from going from Olive Garden to a high-end restaurant that's in, New York for Italian food. There's definitely like a range of what you would expect in America when it comes to food, depending on how much you're willing to pay, as well as what you're actually looking for. And the thing is, I think the big portion sizes also have like a bit of an issue, I feel, when it comes to health and stuff. But at the same time, if you plan accordingly, you could definitely save if you note the big portion sizes and buy maybe just 2 entrees for like a whole family of 4. You could save a lot of money doing that, as well as just build a better, closer knit family, just sharing meals together in that way. So there's always a time and place, and it's better to like be aware of how foods in other countries work when you go there. And if you see something that's different from what you expect, instead of being upset about it or offended about it, just being open-minded and saying, well, I'm going to try this out, or this is how it is in this country, and that's fine. It's just different. And if you end up not liking the taste of something, you can always try something else. And because, the thing about, I think, most countries is that there's a wide range of options that you can choose from. It's just, knowing who to ask and knowing how to look for it is what's important. So thank you for watching this video and me talking about food. I love talking about food, so I hope we can talk more about the other types of food stuff that happens. Maybe if this arc continues, but I highly doubt it. I think the next chapter is going to be about something totally different because they've more or less finished the court case. But if they continue this food idea, it would be very interesting to see who else is put on the stand as far as the defendant goes, who else is going to be guilty of messing up foods. So thank you very much for watching this video. Please like and hit subscribe for more videos like these. And thank you so much for supporting my multi-link video edits. And I will say, though, that I don't make any penny from those videos because the music is owned by other, those music record companies. And also, I would hate making money from these because it's with other people's art and it's just not mine. So just thank you for watching them, but just know that I'm not making any money from these. I'm trying to make a little more original content so that YouTube might recognize this channel. So please support some of my original content as well. And thank you very much and have a good rest of your day.